I want to welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca Grossman. I'm the CEO of the Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors, and we are delighted that you chose to participate in our town hall meeting today. It's wonderful to have so many interested in these great speakers that we have. I do want to tell you a little bit about how we will conduct the meeting. It will be that you'll see all of the panelists. We know that you're there. We see you listed, and you can ask your questions through the chat to the panelists, and we will get to as many questions as we can. So if you have any questions during the town hall, you can put that in the chat as well. And Corinne Duran, who's our staff person helping us through this today, will be happy to help you. If you have any technical issues, please do call our office, 480-945-2651. And so it is my pleasure now to turn this over to our president, our 2020 president, Cindy Reddy, who will introduce our first speaker. Thank you, Cindy.
This is such an honor to introduce our first speaker. So it's a pleasure for me to serve on Vince's leadership team. And Vince Malta is our current National Association of Realtors president. Since 1988, he's been deeply involved in the California Association of Realtors. In 2002, he became an honorary state director for life, and in 2006, SAAR elected him president. He was awarded the Realtor of the Year for the state of California in 2007. He's a third-generation realtor and the CEO of Malta & Company. He's been in real estate for 43 years and has served in countless roles in the industry. So thank you so much, President Malta, for being with us.
And thank you, President Cindy, and hello from San Francisco. I'm glad to join our realtor friends in Scottsdale, Arizona, even if it's virtually for now. A special hello and thank you to you again, President Cindy, for all you're doing and your team, President-elect Lewis McCall, Vice President Sandy Lunsford, Secretary and CEO Rebecca Grossman, Treasurer Paul Baker, and immediate past President David Schmid. Thank you all for your leadership and commitment during this extraordinary year. And I think the word extraordinary might be an understatement. We're only halfway through 2020, and this has been probably one of the more challenging years that we could have ever imagined. You know, there was no realtor playbook for global pandemics when this all started. And so I want to thank you for helping us write that playbook as we go on day by day at the state, the local, and the national level. COVID-19 has changed every aspect of our daily lives, how we interact with each other. Look at us now. Here we are on Zoom. How many of you heard of Zoom 4 months ago? I certainly hadn't. So it's affected us in every way. And just as we begin to see cities and states cautiously reopening, we faced yet another national tragedy, the shocking and senseless murder of George Floyd. We at the NAR share the hurt, the frustration, and outrage felt by millions of Americans. We believe that Black Lives Matter, and we believe that as leaders in our communities, realtors are active participants in promoting equality, inclusion, and acceptance. We appreciate all you do to listen, learn, and work with others to be a part of that solution. For instance, consider the story of the Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors' own Tamala Daniels. Some of you may know her story. Tamala has channeled her personal experiences with racism and discrimination into a mission to break down economic barriers. Tamala's family was part of the Okima community in South Phoenix. Its African-American residents were only allowed to acquire property within this area and faced difficulties accessing vital services such as lending. But Tamala's family was determined to be part of the solution. She watched her mother become a business owner, and Tamala became a real estate consultant focused on enhancing diversity in business development. Today, she educates clients on the importance of wealth building through homeownership and real estate investment, and she works tirelessly to ensure greater opportunity for all. I believe Tamala is with us today. So Tamala, on behalf of 1.4 million realtors across the country, I want to personally thank you for all you're doing to transform Scottsdale and neighborhoods across the country. And while we may not have always been there with you, today we stand with you against injustice and for a better future for all families. One of our priorities for 2020 is to continue to address the issues of equality and affordability in housing. Earlier this year, the NAR leadership team passed a Fair Housing Action Plan called ACT, which stands for Accountability, Culture Change, and Training. Among other proactive steps, this plan calls on us to create minimum core fair housing training requirements for all states and develop a model state licensing law to make sure real estate agents who violate fair housing laws are held accountable. We must ensure America's 1.4 million realtors are doing everything possible to protect housing rights in America. We have a few ways that NAR can help you take action right now. First, I invite you to watch NAR's new video on implicit bias. The strategies it presents can help all realtors override bias to convey respect, ensure fairness, and improve business relationships. This video I watched the other day, it's 45 minutes, and we've had a long discussion about what not to say in real estate, but this will establish our dialogue to create what we should be saying and what our protocol should be. And you can find that video and online implicit bias tests at nar.realtor/fair-housing. Again, that's nar.realtor/fair-housing. You can also obtain the at-home with diversity certification, which is designed to help realtors work successfully with and within a rapidly changing multicultural market. It includes topics such as diversity sensitivity, how it applies to U.S. fair housing laws in your business, and ways to develop professional guidelines for working with people in the increasingly multicultural real estate market. Through the end of June, that online version of this certification course is 50% off, so please take advantage of that. And finally, your association can apply for NAR's new Community Rebuilding Grant, which provides special funding for realtor associations to help rebuild communities affected by racial injustice demonstrations. Local and state associations could apply for grants up to $3,000 to clean up and repair community places. But more importantly, hopefully this will start a conversation in your community and bringing in and collaborating with other groups as we work towards the solutions as we move forward. NAR's commitment to fair housing has only strengthened in response to the recent tragedies. We just announced a partnership with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The Equality of Opportunity Initiative is part of a broad national effort to examine economic inequality and advance economic inclusion in America. We're also bringing attention to a number of ideas to increase the number of African American homeowners and to help close the persistent gap in homeownership rates. Those ideas include building more homes to increase supply and make it easier to convert from renting to owning, building more homes in opportunity zones to invest in the revitalization of economically distressed areas, increasing access to down payment assistance, strengthening FHA's loan program, an important source of financing for first-time buyers and minority households, and expanding alternative credit scoring models to include rent and utility payments, adding more positive payment histories to better demonstrate financial responsibility. NAR firmly believes in equal opportunity in housing and will continue to lead efforts to expand fair housing rights across the country. The role of realtors in helping people achieve their American dream has become even more vital during COVID-19 pandemic. NAR partnered with a research firm on a series of surveys to explore how home buyers and sellers want to safely handle home sales transactions in this new environment. About half of buyers and sellers said that during the pandemic, Relying on a real estate professional when searching for or selling a home is much more important than ever before. Thank you for all you're doing to serve your clients safely and effectively in these ever-changing conditions. While you focus on advocating for your clients, we're advocating for you in Washington. And over the past few months, realtor advocacy has been nothing short of extraordinary. Many members of Congress have said they hear from realtors more than any other group. What does that mean? That means we're doing it right. And now this work is more important than ever. NAR secured major wins for realtors in COVID-19 relief legislation, and we continue to advocate for additional relief measures for our industry. Realtors made sure independent contractors and those living on a commission-based income were eligible for SBA loans, unemployment assistance, and paid sick leave and family leave. Folks, that's all of us. Let me stress this, for the first time ever, that independent contractors were eligible for stimulus funds. Realtor advocacy made history here. And we also stood up for consumers, supporting mortgage forbearance measures that allow borrowers of government-backed mortgages to request for up to 360 days of payment forbearance. We urged Congress to take quick action to appropriate more funds for the Paycheck Protection and EIDL programs. We supported the EIDL Emergency Advance Grant, which provides income for small businesses experiencing a temporary loss of revenue due to COVID-19. And a couple of weeks ago, with NAR support, Congress passed and the President signed a Paycheck Protection Program corrections bill. And that legislation provides more flexibility for small businesses receiving loans through the PPP program by lowering the payroll spend amounts and increasing the amount of time to use the funds from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. Last week, NAR asked House Small Business Committee members to consider automatically forgiving all PPP loans of $150,000 or less. NAR encourages anyone who qualifies and needs this help to apply before the June 30th deadline, which is rapidly coming. We have detailed FAQs on the PPP and other relief programs available to you at nar.realtor/coronavirus. There you'll find a full collection of COVID-19 guidance for realtors. There may be more help on the horizon as Congress considers whether to move forward on a 5th round of relief. Congressional leaders from both parties continue to signal that they hope to pass another major relief bill before August. The House passed a bill in mid-May called the HEROES Act, but the Senate and the White House rejected it. So, as Congress hammers out our next bill, we're seeing a return of the typical DC partisanship. But, let's face it, that might be just a sign that things are starting to get back to normal a little bit. In these negotiations, we'll continue to make our voice heard, and NAR will be advocating for a nationwide remote online notarization law, as you now have in Arizona. Liability protections for businesses that reopen following federal and state guidelines. Housing relief for renters, including emergency rental assistance, as well as relief for rental housing providers. Expansion of forbearance and unemployment assistance, and reforms and continued deadline relief for the 1031 like-kind exchange and opportunity zone programs to encourage investment. Elimination of the marriage penalty and the SALT deduction, and homeownership tax incentives. And on top of it all, there's a lot at stake this year. This is an election year, and we have elections at all 3 levels of government. Our advocacy work and our collective voice is more important than ever. Across the country, the response from local, state, and federal governments has been critical to helping our members weather the storm. And at a time when we need it most, we've seen years of investments in relationship building pay dividends for realtors. NAR is one of the most powerful advocacy teams on Capitol Hill, and record-setting grassroots support in state houses and city halls across the country. We'll continue to fight to protect homeowners, support the real estate industry, and drive the economy forward. And we remain committed to ensuring candidates who will protect homeownership and private property rights win on election day. Our message to realtors remains the same: vote, act, and invest. Thank you for anything you can do to support our RPAC goals and to stay engaged with your lawmakers. With our economies and communities reopening in phases, it's our responsibility as realtors to operate our businesses in a safe and legal manner. Arizona has been hit hard by the pandemic, and all realtors need to stay up to date on all the requirements to keep our offices and our clients safe. We must put the health and safety of our clients and communities first at all times by complying with those local, state, and federal guidelines, whichever are more strict. The groundwork we lay now through responsible and safe practices will have ripple effects in the months and years to come. NAR released comprehensive office reopening guidance with a checklist that includes everything from preparing the physical workspace to setting up office policies and staff training to creating a culture of open communication. We also created a guide with best practices and guidelines for showing properties during this time. These resources are available as part of our COVID-19 guidance. As part of our COVID-19 resources, let me remind you that NAR is here to serve members any way we can. If you have questions about the impact of this pandemic or about any of our NAR benefits available to you, call our dedicated hotline. That number is 1-800-874-6500. Again, 1-800-874-6500. Member support representatives are available to speak with you between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday. NAR has had more than $15 million worth of business critical tools and educational resources available to members for free or at a significant discount through our Right Tools Right Now program. If there was ever a time that our members needed us, we recognize it's now. And so we took everything out of the tool chest and offering it to you, even a member's telehealth plan. You could visit the nar.realtor website for more information on those programs as well. We're proud of the resilience displayed by our realtor team during this time. And if any of you saw the Ken Burns video yesterday for our RPAC Hall of Famers, Ken Burns said something very, I think, instrumental, that what makes our country so great, I think one commentator says, was our Constitution, baseball, and jazz. But what is the one constant? It is our ability to improvise, to adapt, be resilient. And that's what realtors have done over these last several months. And that's why we're going to be a big part of this recovery. But you've not just adapted the way you do business. You've supported your clients during a great time of stress by reaching out to them. And that's been so very important. And you're making a huge difference in our communities by donating to local food banks, by buying meals for healthcare workers. And you've reached out to clients and colleagues just to say, hope you're doing well. And what do you need? We're leading the way on policies that address racial injustice and that build safe and inclusive communities. And we're continuing to help families fulfill their dream of homeownership. Many things are still uncertain, but one thing is for sure. Realtors are leading by example, and we will lead our country's recovery. So I conclude by saying to you, be well. And on behalf of NAR, we thank you for all you're doing for your members, our industry, and our communities. So with that, if you have time for some questions and answers, I'll be happy to answer any.
Thank you, Vince. I did have a question that came forward in regards to the social injustice. Where is a good place for us to start as an organization, and how can we include our members in some meaningful dialogue?
Well, thank you for that question. Let me tell you, the first place to begin is to recognize that there's overt discrimination. And that's really easy to see. And that's really easy for us to say, I don't discriminate because I don't do that. But what we really need to do is a much better self-examination of what we could be doing. And that's why I direct people to that implicit bias video. And it was a real eye-opener for me. And so I hope people go to the website, take a look at that. Then I hope they take the class, because this is an area that realtors need to lead. We could talk the talk. There are so many companies out there that have incredible, they're offering incredible words. I could sit at Starbucks and feel great about how Starbucks feels about things while I'm sipping my caramel macchiato. But this is something we live as a business, because we're not gatekeepers of the American dream of homeownership. What we need to do is facilitate and make that dream possible for everyone in America. So that's where it starts. It starts with us. It starts with me and what I need to be doing. And then we'll work together as an industry at the state, local, national levels to make sure that we're having these conversations, that we're listening, and that we make sure there's accountability.
The other question that we have is, will unemployment assistance be available to the realtor community beyond July 31st?
Yes, I believe we're working on that. It's basically set up. So you're talking about in relation to self-employed, the self-employed program, because these programs are administered at the state level. So it'll be dependent upon the state, but the funds and the programs administered through the federal government, we're working on extending them beyond certain dates, because right now it's appearing that this recovery is not turning on like a light switch. It's turning on more like a dimmer switch. And it's going to affect different areas of our country differently. So we want to make sure that people are covered. And why is this? I mean, if we learned anything from the recession in 2010, it's we've got to keep people in their homes. And that's what those forbearance programs were all about. And we need to keep our general economy afloat so that when we come back, it's there. And very proud that, again, our industry has been able to adapt, and we have worked through some of the most difficult conditions and show that we can do social distancing. Imagine if we were in the airline industry, the hotel industry, restaurant industry, and the challenges they face years ahead. So we need to continue to show that we can do this throughout and make those programs available to make sure their economy stays intact.
Thank you. This question may be something Lawrence can touch on as well, but as you know, our inventory is very low, and houses that are priced appropriately and in good condition are selling fairly quick. And is it a good idea still to avail themselves of the expense of a 3D tour on current listings? And that might be on a case by case, but what are your thoughts about the continued use of virtual tours versus live showings?
So Lawrence will talk about the inventory, but as a practitioner, here's our challenge. We have an inventory problem in many parts of the country. Okay, we had it before COVID-19, and we certainly have it now. And why do we have it now? I think we need to instill into our sellers that we can do this. They can still get a good price for their property. Okay, they get a great price for their property. I see all over the country people telling me that they're receiving multiple offers on properties above asking price in many instances. But we need to convince them that we can do this. We can do social distancing. We have the tools to make this happen, whether we have to do it by virtual showings only, by spacing out showings, by providing booties, masks, whatever it takes, creating and we'll see MLSs across the country more and more accommodating the additional needs for these virtual showings. So that's what we need. We need to set expectations in the seller's mind. So that's really the challenge we have in going forward, in making sure that we can convince sellers we can do this.
I'm going to ask Corinne to unmute one of our members, Shay Tor, who has a question for you, Vince. And we're going to ask you to say it for us.
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. So my question is, can you elaborate a little more on the NAR plan to increase home ownership among African Americans?
Okay. So the first way that we're looking to do it is making sure that we have lending guidelines that reflect the needs of African Americans. Okay. So our concern is that we know our history of where we have been as a nation in relation to exclusionary policies, redlining, et cetera. The biggest fear we have today is that federal policies and lenders create these overlay policies that have perhaps a discriminatory effect. So we need to look at how they assess risk, how they price risk, and make sure that they don't have a discriminatory impact to borrowers, particularly, let's say, in this instance, the African American community. And they were hit really hard. And Lawrence probably has better numbers than I as to what happened in the Great Recession. But their home ownership, I believe, went down to 40 or below 40%, okay, which are numbers that are lower than the Fair Housing 1968 law that came. Could you imagine? So we're pre-1968 numbers before fair housing. That's awful. So what is NAR proactively doing? Okay, so number one, as practitioners, we're looking at ourselves and saying, making sure, number one, we're not biased. We're adhering to our code of ethics. We're practicing fair housing. Number two, we're looking at what we can do in creating inventory, okay, that we look to create more affordable housing opportunities for people, and that we make sure that, as I said, those conversions for converting renters into homeowners happens, and that's what we're doing. We're also collaborating and working with other industry groups. I was just on a webinar with the president of NAREB, which is an organization that existed because as realtors, we did not allow African-American members. And here I am on a call with the president of NAREB, working together and finding solutions. So there's no silver bullet to this. So I look forward to working with those groups, working with our lending community, and working with Congress in being committed to this issue as we move forward, especially when all of this is off the front page of the paper, that we must continue to make sure this is a pillar of what we stand for and lead our industry.
We had a follow-up to that. What will the diversity designation be designed to do?
Two things with diversity, okay? Again, in relation to what we do as practitioners and what we do as employers, okay? So those are the, I think it's Article 10 of the Code of Ethics. If you could go to that, you will see that that's what diversity is really geared towards, and making sure that people in all aspects of their business, both the buying, selling, leasing of property, as well as the business, the brokerage of business in real estate, adheres to that. So that's what's important. But again, I really ask people to go and look at that implicit bias video that is online, that is there right now. And I think that will get a great conversation going. And I'm also encouraging that the local and state associations that do not have diversity committees, that they look in starting a diversity committee, because I think there is so much that could be done, because I think a lot of this really is locally, the best job we can do is at the local level in relation to this. So really look hard at those things. And I think next year, I'll have a huge smile on my face when those numbers of diversity committees across the country have gone up exponentially.
Thank you. I am going to, and by the way, I did put the link to the bias video in the chat for those of you who are interested. I have seen it. It is an incredibly produced and thoughtful video. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to unmute Tricia Lehane to ask her question.
Okay, so thank you very much for participating in our town hall today. Is there any consideration for a first-time homebuyer assistance program?
Yes. As a matter of fact, our board of directors at our virtual May meetings passed a resolution that would look at and promoting those Congress. So that's going to be one of our main talking points as we move forward.
So do you have a time frame? Do you have a time frame on that at all?
Well, so basically, everything seems to be COVID-19 based regarding relief programs, that sort of thing. We're trying to work that in to make sure that Congress considers that as part of any relief package, because they don't want to see any legacy programs going forward. But having said that, we still need to resolve flood insurance and all the issues that are coming up. So yeah, we're going to have to reckon with it one way or the other. But as far as the timeline is concerned, that's something we're working on right now. And so we're looking for a vehicle that we could attach it to. And it's part of our tax reform strategy in relation to this. Because look, we represent 1/5 of our economy, okay? The real estate industry does. And we need to make sure that we're a huge economic driver. We've convinced them that we're essential in 49 states, correct? And that we can get this done. Other industries are going to be lagging behind.
Yes.
With the exception of Clorox, right? Other industries are going to be lagging behind. So we're going to be the driver here of this economic recovery. And that's the message we're giving them. So give us more tools. And that's one of them, what you're just promoting.
Thank you very much, Tricia, for that question. We're going to have time for one more question, Vince.
Sure.
Are there any new laws or regulations being discussed on easing lending requirements for those impacted by layoffs in regards to the 2-year verifiable income to qualify for home loans?
Okay. So 2 things. So with the relief program, no one's credit score is being affected by these forbearance agreements. So I think this is somewhat related to that, okay? So your credit score is not impacted if you requested forbearance. The concern that we have is when you apply for a loan, eventually, you're going to be asked regarding your payment history, okay, and your employment history in relation to obtaining a loan. So we're going to be working with Congress, we're going to be working with lenders to make sure that their impact or ability to get a loan is not going to be tarnished, diminished in the future in relation to this. Look, this was something so huge, okay? This self-induced coma that we put ourselves in was no one's fault, okay? That's why there should be huge extenuating circumstances to make sure people's lives can resume after this is over in a normal manner. I think that's important so that we can move on. It's important for ourselves as a nation to grow. And so we're going to be fighting for that. We're not there yet, but we're going to fight for it.